The Guardians came out swinging like the bullies in Game 1 of an important series and gave Kansas City a royal flush.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians, where this team scores their touchdowns and makes their field goals. This is Locked On Guardians. It's our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it is yours as well, because for the next half hour, we're talking about your Cleveland Guardians, and the majors, the minors, the draft, everything in between. And we do it every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team, your Cleveland Guardians every day. I'm Justin Lada. Been here with my co-host and friend Jeff Ellis since October of 2022. I've been covering the Cleveland Guardians farm system for the last 18 years.
I am, as you said, Jeff Ellis, and contrary to some of our commenters, we are friends. It's always a funny thing to me when people...
Friends of the day. No, I'm kidding.
You're just going to feed that weird conspiracy. But I want to thank you all for joining us today. I totally lost my whole intro there. I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been one of the OG hosts they brought in when Locked On expanded into baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects and the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And a big shout out to all of our everydayers. If you're a fan or if you work with the team, we appreciate each and every one of you who join us daily to hear us talk about the majors and the minors. And as Justin said, everything in between.
Absolutely. On today's show, we'll talk about the 2026 roster. I know we're still talking about 2025 and the Guardians running down a playoff spot, but there are some interesting things to track down moving into next year that are going to be really fun to talk about. So we'll dive into a little bit of that. We'll talk about how the 44-year no-hitter drought continues, despite another chance to get it close. And we'll have to talk about the Guardians' offense. Of course, they came out swinging at the start of a very important series. They did a lot of good things. Before we get into it today's episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Real quick, too, shout out to Mike and Lori Civic, who tracked me down at the game. We were just chatting a little bit before, and I know they're fans and everydayers, so appreciate them. And while we're shouting out everydayers, we also have to throw out a big boo to insider Matt M., who jinxed the Guardians no-hitter. I have a screenshot, Matt, so you are culpable this time. He said, "You told me nobody else mentioned it to you?" I said, "Nope, I was at the game. The section was empty. It was me and my wife, so nobody else mentioned the word no-hitter to me except for Matt. So if you want to know who to blame on this one, it's Matt."
Tom Hamilton was mentioning it incessantly starting at about the 6th.
Well, that's different because as a radio guy, you have to.
He was focused on the no-hitter and the size of Jack Caglione's feet. It was a little bit weird. It was a lot of talk. When Jack
that is generational talent, Jack Caglione, to use.
But I now know he has size 17 feet because it came up a lot to the point where I'm okay, Tom, I know you're a big fan here, but let's move on.
What they say about big feet?
Nope, we're not going there.
Big expectations. The Royals might want to lower their expectations for the rest of the series. Speaking of that having the offense come out like that obviously is always a lot of fun, especially the way they did it.
7 doubles, 8 doubles. What was the final count for doubles?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 doubles. And yeah, we were just talking off air. The 8, 9, 1, 2 spots in this lineup, the wraparound there, had 5, 8, 9, 10 hits in this game out of these.
Everyone reached base except for Bo Naylor.
Technically, Angel Martinez didn't because he came into the game as a replacement for Gabriel Arias, but every starter except for Bo Naylor reached base. And the reason I think this is really important too, and you text this to me while I was at the game, and the offense started to come to life in the 4th inning with the 6-run inning, is that you're pushing out one of their starters out of the game early. 3 1/3 innings for Ryan Bergert, who, by the way, a very rough homecoming for him. He is a Glen Oak Canton product who I saw a lot of fans in attendance tonight, and it was a rough one for him. But this allows the Guardians to get into the Royals pitching staff really deep in this series after game 1, because they had to go through
Lynch, Bowlen, and Clark.
Yeah, they had to obviously use Luke Maile at the end, but you had to you got 3 relievers into this game, and Lynch threw 40 pitches, Bowlen threw 20, Clark threw 32. So those guys are burned up for at least a day or two. That's really good for the Guardians because this starting pitching staff for the Royals is still pretty good, because you're going to get Noah Cameron, who's pretty solid. Michael Waka, who has really given them problems in the past.
Yeah. And Stephen Kolek's going to pitch.
Yeah. So getting into that bullpen, the soft underbelly of that bullpen, as Jeff likes to say, obviously they didn't have to use guys like Estevez and Urseg, who are the top dogs in that bullpen, but you got to some of their depth, and that's going to be important in this 4-game series. And now the Guardians pull ahead of the Royals, and they're only trailing the Rangers and the Mariners, who are currently losing 2-0 as we record this, to the Cardinals.
And the other thing too, it's like in that particular one, I wish my website would load here so I could make this point even better. Daniel Lynch has been a pretty important part of their pen, and I believe he's like they've got Sam Long and Angel Zerpe, Zerpe has been better, but like Lynch is probably their best left-handed pitcher, and we know how this team is not set up really to go against a lot of lefties. And he's out for at least one game, maybe two, with that number of pitches. So knocking Lynch out is hugely beneficial. In particular, he has been a guy they can count on for multiple innings. He's a guy who's gotten a lot of holds for them. That's a nice situation. Estevez has been great. Ursig he blew a game recently. He's had some ups and downs. Overall the pen is John Schreiber's been pretty solid, but it's a good, not great pen. And when you just start knocking guys out who aren't going to be able to pitch, that's huge. And I think Bolin is a relatively recent call-up situation. But yeah, it's a team that has like 5 starters on the injured list. Bailey Falter is on the injured list now. They traded for at the deadline. So it's Cole Raggins, Alec Marsh, Seth Lugo, Bailey Falter, and Chris Bubik. And then from their pen, Hunter Harvey, who they traded for a year ago, Steven Cruz, and James MacArthur, who at one point in time was their closer, I believe. When they were really
last
bad.
year he started the year as a closer.
Those guys are out. So it's a beat up pitching staff, and Cleveland's got to take advantage of this. It's Noah Cameron is, in my opinion, he has not been as strong of late. He's starting to wear down, but he is the best of their remaining starters. So that's going to be the most interesting situation, at least when I'm looking at matchups. But they're a good team. They struggle offensively like Cleveland. There's a lot of Cleveland offensive similarities. These are 2 of the worst offenses in baseball. The one thing Cleveland has
who looked
right now,
worse in this game?
Cleveland's got right now. I mean, like Nolan Jones got into one. He started to look a little bit better. Jose, we talked about, is definitely coming off the snide. Rocchio has been one of their top 3 bats in the second half.
Manzardo, MVP in this game.
Yeah, I mean Manzardo has been their best hitter in the second half. Like they do have some guys stepping up right now. Gabby Arias with a wrist injury. It's unfortunate. He did have the single, which kind of started things, and the hustle play. And again, it's just the strength of that arm gives you an advantage, especially because like we saw how good Rocchio's defense can be at second base. Like having him and Gabby and Rocchio, especially because so many of our pitchers are now ground ball guys, having those 2, one at second, and then it really does mean a lot. And I think it's not a coincidence the pitching staff has leveled up in the last week when Gabby was fully back, healthy, and playing.
Yeah, that does give you a defensive advantage for sure, especially when you're a team that, is streaky offensively. Obviously, they hit the ball well for the first couple games in Boston and then kind of disappeared on night 1 in Tampa Bay. Didn't score a lot of runs on Tampa Bay in general, except for the one Saturday night game where they scored 7. Or was that Friday? It was Friday they scored 7, I think. But they're going to be streaky. Like, there's going to be times where this offense is still, they deserve to win. The Royals had a higher expected batting average in this game, believe it or not. So the Guardians, I don't know, they obviously didn't get away with one, but that's just sometimes how the things roll. And their defense was fantastic, which played a role in that as well. And Slade Cecconi was obviously in the zone all night long. But yeah, the defense is really important for them when you don't score a lot of runs, especially like you said, when they are having more ground balls. And it's going to be interesting to see how they respond on Tuesday night if they keep this thing rolling, because they are facing a lefty in Noah Cameron. And that's obviously, get ready to see John Kenzanuel, get ready to see David Fry. So they're going to roll out Angel Martinez. So you're probably going to get the quote-unquote B lineup, even though they're facing a lefty. So we'll see if they can continue to keep it going. The Guardians, though, they will have – it's still 44 years. I guess the season's not over yet. But 44 years and counting continues without a no-hitter. But Slade Cecconi made an attempt to knock that one out. We'll talk about Slade Cecconi's performance coming up on the rest of today's Lockdown Guardians. You could have been at this game because there is nothing like seeing a baseball game live. the energy, even though it was a lightly attended game, the crowd was into it with the offense, so they were into it with the no-hitter. It's a great chance to see your team in person. You never know what you're going to see. I was hoping for the no-hitter, but getting tickets sometimes can be hard, especially if you're using certain apps. I won't say name any names. That's the tough part. But Gametime is the app that gives you the advantage, gives fans like us the advantage, because it is fast and easy, and it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time at the best price. All fees are included, so the price you see is always the price you pay. No surprises. And I love how you can always look to see where your seat's going to be. And if you wait till the last minute to go to the game, make a last minute decision, you get a really good price. And Gametime is the perfect place to show you exactly what you're going to pay and where you're going to sit. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, thanks for being here with us on today's Locked On Guardians. As always, make sure you're auto-downloading on all of your audio platforms so you never miss an episode. You're not going to want to miss how the season turns out for the Guardians, because they are hitting the home stretch, and they're still playing meaningful baseball, and they've got a big series ahead. And then hit the bell on YouTube so you can see reaction videos live from games, like I did on Monday. All the episodes, the MLB Squad Show. You never know what might be coming your way, so make sure you're hitting the bell on YouTube for all that good stuff. I got to be honest. I mean, I don't know. I thought Gavin Williams took his no-hitter in the ninth inning, obviously. It was a much tougher team, the Mets, and they're on the road. For some reason, I really felt like this was the time it was going to happen, because Slade Cecconi is one of those guys where it's like, this is not the guy you expect to throw a no-hitter, right? And he gives up a lot of hard contact. The defense, though, was great all night. I mean, Rocchio was fantastic at second. Arias made some nice plays at shortstop. Daniel Sheeman in center field played
center field catch, yeah.
Yeah, that great catch. I mean, they were just on their toes all night long for Slade Cecconi. So I was like, I feel like this is the night, because Cecconi tends to get a lot of good batted ball luck, even though he gets up a lot of hard hits. The defense was playing good, and I'm like, it just feels like some random guy should be the one to end the drought, right? Like, after all these years, it hasn't been CC Sabathia, it hasn't been Cliff Lee, it hasn't been Corey Kluber, it wasn't Shane Bieber, it wasn't Gavin Williams this time. Why not be? I don't want to say Slade Cecconi is not random, but like, out of all the names I just mentioned, I don't think you're sitting there saying, "Oh yeah, Slade Cecconi, he's the guy. If they're gonna end this no-hitter drought, it's gonna be Slade Cecconi." So I just felt like maybe it was meant to be, and it obviously it was not, but it started to feel that way after a while.
The only reason I didn't think it was, like I've seen a lot. It's I can remember Zach Plesac versus the Mariners. I can remember Charles Nagy had a few that went pretty deep. Like I said, I am 44, and the last one happened right before I was born. The reason I was kind of in and out on this one, in terms of like, I was like, okay, if we get to the ninth, I'll go live. But I wasn't going to announce or do anything, because I wasn't sure if we get there, just because of the pitch count. He had some long at bats, some of those walks guys he had gotten. It's like, we just know that a guy who hasn't pitched that, it's the longest he's ever gone in a game. And it's probably one of his highest pitch counts, that when it's something you're not used to doing, you just wear down a bit quicker. And the one thing you can say is the Royals are, let's put it this way, in terms of like, we talked about like where they are offensively, Kansas City is 22nd, Cleveland is 25th versus lefties in WRC plus. And those are both, one's low 80s, one's high 70s. And against righties, Kansas City is 26th, Cleveland is 28th. These are two anemic offenses. So you did have that component in his favor in this game. Whereas like the New York Mets currently have the highest WRC plus versus righties this year. Like,
that would have been impressive.
Yeah, that's what would have made that all the more impressive. But like, you just sit there and you're I was rooting for it. I was like, come on. And then, but I just always thought like, he's going to run out of gas. And great of him to finish that inning, acknowledge the fans. You could tell that like, he knew it. Like, some guys like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention. He knew it. Like, he spent every bit of his being. He was enjoying that game and the performance and going out there. And he's had a bit of a rough second half with some of the batted ball luck going the other way, which was bound to happen. But this was a game where, again, you see And, I listen to Tom Hamilton while I'm watching the games. I do that deal with the MLB TV, or I do radio on the broadcast. And, it's again, we've got him for 5 more years. Like, Naylor's had a great year, but like, you're always going to keep revisiting that trade in moments like this, because you're getting Slade for 5 years, and this is year 1 of development. He was awful last year with Arizona. Like,
he might as well be a rookie this year.
Yeah,
seriously.
it's like Arizona has had a really rough record of developing pitching in general, and it's like we're seeing year 1 of this, and they, they'll have even more time to work with him and develop. And what a performance. He's been such a breath of fresh air. He was the Ben Lively replacement when Ben Lively got hurt. And again, it's just the resilience of this team and the depth they built up with, Lively and Ortiz. And McKenzie was a pen guy. He was never a starter this year, right? Like, it's just all the things that they kind of overcame starting pitching, Cantillo's ups and downs. I mean, heck, Cantillo's last start, how many didn't he go, like 4 or 5 no-hit innings? Like, was that, or is it just a really strong performance? I was trying to remember that too.
I don't recall.
But
it was funny too. It's hard to do. I feel like when you have an offensive blowout game too, because he had to sit for. Yes. He texted me and said he had to sit for like 30 minutes in that 6-run inning, and I was like, oh, that'll. At that point, it was the bottom of the 4th inning, I think, when that happened. So I was like, well, he's probably going to lose it here because like he sat for so long.
And then my response is not something we can mention on the air.
Yeah, well, but he kept it going.
He did.
After that, he got into the 8th inning, which was really fun. He only got to 100 pitches on the dot in the 8th inning. So if he would have gotten through that inning without another hit at 100 pitches, I would have set him out for the 9th inning.
Yeah,
why not?
100%. Especially in a 10-0 lead,
Yeah, 10-0 lead, and I don't think there was any. I mean, obviously, giving him no hits, you're not going to have a lot of stressful innings. Like, he had 3 walks, but he never really had a stressful inning. So, I mean, he had a lot of double play balls because the defense again was fantastic. So, I would have sent him out for that. And Slade Cecconi, ironically enough, wears 44, and the Guardians are at a 44-year streak of no hitters. But we've seen in the past too. Like I was telling my wife at the game, I was like, well, they've been close a couple times. They had Carlos Carrasco almost did it in 2015, which that would have been a name I'd have been like, okay, that makes sense that Carrasco could be the guy to end it. And of course, it was Joey Butler, who came to the Cleveland spring training next year as a non-roster invitee. And the other guy, Jeff, do you know the other guy was that year that almost threw a no-hitter? I think we've talked about it already this year after Gavin's, but you remember the other guy who almost threw a no-hitter almost, I think, the same week as Carrasco?
I remember, I think about Plesac versus the Mariners, and then the one I just
2015.
Okay. And the one I have to throw out there is Nagy in 92 versus the Orioles. That's the one I was trying to think of.
I would remember that. I was 3 years old, so.
But yeah.
Do you know it wasn't 2015 besides Carrasco?
No, not top of my head.
No? All right. Well, I'm going to give everybody a chance to comment. I'll wait to say it. But, it was Carrasco and somebody else. But,
didn't Millwood nearly have one in his time here? Didn't Kevin Millwood have a real close call, I think?
Could be. I mean, he led the American League in ERA that year, which is still crazy to me. That 05 team, I'm never going to get over that 2005 team not getting in the playoffs. I was in high school at the time, so I was very invested. And
that was my first year out of college. I was going through a bad breakup. I lived with that team to deal with that. That was my escape.
That is probably my favorite team. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so obviously those are fun. But in my more adolescent life, the 05 team was my favorite of all time. And it hurt me so bad they didn't get in the playoffs. They choked the last week, and I was still convinced that team would have. If they would have gotten in, I'm convinced that team would have won the World Series.
It was like the Royals or something. They're facing a bad team, and
but the Rays. It was Travis Lee who had a home run off of them, and it was.
They couldn't get any offense in that last week.
Yeah.
I also remember that too, just for they use 6 starting pitchers all year. Like, that's never going to happen again.
Yeah. I could tell you who the 6th starter was too. We'll talk about who the 6th starter was that year and who almost threw the other no-hitter in 2015. Comment below, and we'll see if Jeff can get it right coming up on the rest of Lockdown Guardians today.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. Monarch Money is built for people with busy lives. If you're organizing your finances, Monarch Money is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I like spreadsheets. I need to stop. I got a spreadsheet open here right now. But even though I love spreadsheets, I still need help managing my money. I'm going to be honest, I have way too many streaming services right now. I have almost all of them. And I kind of want to add Shudder for the next month. So I got to go through, use Monarch Money and start getting rid of things like Peacock that I'm not using enough. That's where Monarch Money can help me. I got too many streams. Help me figure out the ones I'm not using, Monarch Money. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB.
All right, Jeff, it is your final answers for the sixth starter. Any commenters to the sixth starter in 2005 and the other almost near no-hitter in 2015. I know you had to do an ad read, so you never really have a whole lot of time to think. But.
No, because here's the problem. Like, it all bleeds together in my mind. It's like, obviously, that's like what Millwood and Jason Davis and Scott.
Boom! There you said it. Jason Davis,
Scott Ellerton.
Scott Ellerton, Fausto Carmona at that time. Cliff Lee was there all year. He stunk, but he was there all year. He didn't make the playoff. He wasn't. He was pretty. No, and then, Cliff Lee was good. I'm sorry, he was bad in 07. He was good in 05.
Yeah. So you had CC as well.
CC, Fausto, Scott Ellerton, Millwood, and then the sixth starter was Jason Davis. He made one start, and that was it. Crazy. The 2015 near no hitter besides Carrasco was none other than Cody Anderson, who I don't know. I feel like Slade Cecconi is kind of like similar. It's hard. The fastball is not great. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out, but at least that year for Cody Anderson was really good. Obviously, he never made it really further after that.
You can be a lefty. Well, Anderson was. I just remember the stories of him. Like, he's hitting 97 at camp. Everyone was getting really excited. He's going to be an ace. It just doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Like, I remember getting excited for Austin Adams because it's like, he's a shortstop who's been converted and throws. It doesn't matter if you throw 105 if it's straight as an arrow and has no vertical or induced break or doesn't do anything. Like, Cody Anderson's fastball was as straight as can be, and that was the problem. But again, you can get away with more things when you're a lefty. Like, that's why crafty lefties last forever. There's just, you don't. When I used to fence, we talk about like how lefties are harder for lefties and righties because you just don't see them enough. You don't face that as many times. So there's just something about the fact that it's not what you're used to makes lefties can perform better with less.
Yeah, unfortunately, neither Anderson or Cecconi are left-handed, but Anderson.
I was thinking Parker Messick because we've compared Anderson.
Yeah.
My fault. I was thinking Parker Messick because we've done that comparison with Messick and Anderson in the past. I defaulted.
All right, let's talk a little more about the future here too. Obviously, we talked about how good Slade Cecconi was, and Jeff mentioned how he's here for a couple more, obviously plenty more years, and how important the series is. But 2026 roster is something we've been thinking about a lot lately, and how wide open things could be for next year. Unfortunately, it kind of sounds like Lane Thomas's season is over, which maybe better for the Guardians overall in 2025 instead of being forced to play him down the stretch when he's not ready at all. He was terrible in his rehab starts, but he'll have to take a make good deal next year. I don't know. Will he even get a major league deal in the offseason? We have to settle for a minor league contract.
I think he gets one. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a deal from someone like Cleveland that is, in the past, they've kind of given guys like him. Well, they've given him something where it's like half of the money of what he got this year and the other half is incentive based.
Incentives. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And that's the kind of, those are the kind of free agent contracts the Guardians usually excel in. It's not the Mike Zaninos and the Josh Bells and all that stuff that they do well on. It's crappy. Edwin was good for 2 years, but those are not usually the contracts they do well on. Usually it's the guys that they give like huge incentive based deals to that do really well. And maybe that could be Lane Thomas, but they've got a lot of options. I don't know if we're going to see like a ton of turnover on this roster, but they don't have a whole lot committed to next year. And I think it's interesting that this team has continued to battle all season despite what's gone on. And, we've all had our criticisms with Stephen Vogt this season too. But one thing you could say about what this team has done is they are still fighting every game. They're not quitting. They're playing hard. They're staying in the race, even though they could have gotten out of it. And at least moving into next year, I know I saw one comment on YouTube saying, or one of our insiders, John, was talking about how he thinks they're on the right track. And I said, maybe. I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. But they've got things pretty wide open for next year where they can kind of go in a lot of different directions, I feel like.
Yeah, there's not a lot of committed money. There's a lot of options. One of the interesting things, too, is they've only got 8 players that are arbitration eligible. Like not pre-arb means you're making basically league minimum, and you can get additional money from the fund, that players fund that all the teams have to pay into, which people often forget that Cleveland does have to pay a set amount of money into that fund. All teams do. It's something that happens. So there it goes into that. But if you're curious, arbitration guys, Will Brennan, who you and I both think will be let go. Nolan Jones probably won't be. Stephen Kwan, while he's had a really kind of miserable year for him, he still made an all-star team, and he's still probably going to win a Gold Glove. 2 pieces of hardware. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes from 4 to 8 there.
Yeah, he'll double his salary.
Yeah. David Fry, Kobe Allard's ARB 3 coming off a career year. Matt Vesta ARB 1. Sam Hench's ARB 3. Ben Lively ARB 2. And he is a Super 2 guy. So is Hench's. One thing I'll say of both those guys, I would not be shocked if both of them are let go and then immediately re-signed for the same amount of money they had now. They're likely to get that, but maybe they don't even have to worry about with Hench's. With him not pitching at all this year, he would get the same amount. But remember, they cut Lively last year to re-sign him at a lower amount than what his arbitration estimate was. So I think they'd have to do that again because he would kind of get that higher arbitration amount estimate as opposed to his salary. But I do think those guys will be back. In terms of like additional money, Tanner's contract goes up, Jose's contract goes up, Trevor Steffen's contract goes up. They're still going to pay him. And then, I mean, one of the big questions is like, how long are they going to have to keep playing Class A? Because that, he goes up to 6.4, which isn't huge, but it is a $1.5 million increase. So it's like, are they still paying him? As long as this investigation's going on, they're still the ones on the books to pay him. And now it's indefinite. So
I think that'll conclude by the end of the season or the end of the off season. So
hopefully.
If they are, banned for life on baseball, which, again, I seems very hard to believe they're not going to be. We don't know for sure, but once they are done with the investigation, if they are banned, obviously the Guardians are off the hook for both their salaries for next year. And I don't believe was there any payouts for them. They had club options on Class A for 27 and 28, and I don't know if there was like a so they had a buyout of $2 million in 2027 for Class A. So they'd also be off the hook for that too if it comes to that. So. And next year, they still got to pay a little bit to Andres Jimenez. They still pay a little bit to Miles Straw for the next couple of years. But yeah, they'll be off. I think
isn't that just like the leftover ramifications? I mean, that's all going to be paid by the new teams because that's like the signing bonus money that slides through. Because this says according to Fangraphs, this says money owed to Toronto for the Miles Straw trade. Okay, so how much money is that from this year? Or is that going to next year?
They're still paying Straw the next 2 years, $1 million for 26, 1.75 for 2027. And then they're still paying about $500,000 of Andres Jimenez signing bonus for the next 4 seasons. That's both going to Toronto too.
So here's the thing. I think this is the signing bonus thing where it's like it counts against your payroll.
Oh, but
it doesn't count. You're not paying that because the signing bonus.
This says payments. So I feel like they're paying.
No, because it's a signing bonus. You get your signing bonus all at once. It's not spread out over years. Otherwise, it'd be part of your salary. You give them a signing bonus. Why does this
have a signing bonus spread out? I don't know why it has.
Because when you're looking at how the payroll goes against the taxing. So it's the same thing. Like if in one of these, a lot of times things like that, they'll list the average salary for like Tanner being constant instead of just being the one amount or Jose's. But no, your signing bonus, to be a signing bonus, you have to pay them all at once, as I believe. It cannot be, you can't spread a signing bonus out or else then it's part of the overall
I think our buddy
salary.
Andrew
Fever Dog will let me know I'm wrong tomorrow.
He'll weigh in.
And then
they only have a couple of arbitration cases next year. Like you said, 2 of them for sure are going to be guys that get let go and brought back, and then Will Brennan's going to get let go.
Yeah.
And then likely.
I can't see Nolan Jones getting an increase. Like I said, Kwan, I just kind of assumed $4 million.
For sure.
I was like 4.17, put $4 million on that. David Fry, I assumed his would stay the same. I mean, he's ARB1, so maybe his goes up by $1 million because he does have the All-Star game in there. So I didn't really take that.
You got to count in. I mean, they're almost likely. I mean, almost guaranteed to pick up John Means $6 million.
Yeah, I've got that already.
Yeah, for next year.
I did some calculations. So let's say Fry gets an additional $1 million. That takes mine down. Matt Festa, maybe he gets an extra 500,000 because there's a lot of good supporting data. But other than Festa and Fry and Quan, none of these other ARB guys I really see getting big raises. So even if you take away what I just had in here and do some quick math, I've got them at about, let's just say, roughly 37 million lower than they were on this year's salary. That's
including not having Clase and Ortiz, right? Even though Ortiz was still pre-ARB.
Yeah, that's including Clase and Ortiz. It's also including what they had paid so far this year for Seawald and Santana. So it's not what they would have been paid. It's just counting Seawald and Santana. I included what they had been paid so far this year, as well as like if you let Junis go. And again, maybe I think they should probably re-sign him, especially if it returns in the same amount. But that gives them about 37 million. The one thing I'll say though is before like spending spree, a lot of these pre-ARB guys are going to start turning ARB quickly, and then all of a sudden you accelerate fast. Like next year, Cade and Gaddis would be pre-ARB. Now you could say you worry about that then, but you also maybe want to try to, give some of these guys contracts, and Gavin becomes ARB1 next year, and Allen becomes ARB1 next year. So it is a balancing act, but it does set them up to, again, dive into the 1-year pool, which is what they like to do, because it means that if it doesn't work out, hey, it's 1 year.
Yeah, and just overall, there's a lot of guys on this roster they can turn over off of the 40-man roster, which will allow them to make additions in the offseason to the 40-man, but also keep options open for guys like, Juan Brito and Chase DeLauder and, potentially Cooper Ingle and Travis Pisana, things you got to do for next year that could come up, other pitchers that could make their way up too, like a Cal Steven, Cal Steven could be on the radar for next year. So they're not only just money wise, but also I think roster machination wise, there's a lot of wide open maneuvering for them as far as who they could add to the roster and what positions they could turn over to create depth and try to improve this ball club. But hey, 2025 is not over yet. Nope. 2026 could be very interesting. Wednesday may or may not be a solo show. I'll be in Lake County on Tuesday night for the Captain's playoff game. So I may or may not be here with Jeff, but you can bet Wednesday we'll talk Guardians Royals game 2. Jeff wants to dive into some league-wide catching issues and maybe some potential options for Cleveland with catchers. And then I know he'll talk about the Captains and Lynchburg game. They're both playing the playoffs. So I'll give Jeff some updates from Lake County if I can't be here. So lots to tune into on Wednesday's episode.
Yep. And before anyone says, hey, 1 year deal stunk this year, tell it to the Tigers. Gleyber Torres has been a huge part of that team. So sometimes, it works out. But
Jack Flaherty, not so much.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining
us.
Yeah. I hear he's making $16 million. I don't know if you heard that. It was a fan request. So we did do the fan request on Monday there. But thank you all for joining us. Remember to rate and review, download daily. It helps. Fever Dog, let me know what I got wrong, because I'm sure it was a lot. And thank you all again. And go Guardians, go.